So I started looking into mentorship programs, and I discovered Jamil Damji and Astro Flipping. This was back in like end of 2018, beginning of 2019. So they had just started this program. So I was within the first 4 months of them starting it. What they were kind of talking about kind of resonated with me as far as their approach and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, rather than spending another $5,000 on marketing and stuff and really not knowing what I'm doing, I'd rather pay to join, somebody who's going to show me exactly what their recipe is, and I'll stick with that.
Brace yourself for a wild ride into the unexpected. This ain't your typical success show. I'm here talking to real folks who've been through it all, skipping the fancy business talk for authentic stories. We're diving into childhood dreams, teenage escapades, and everything in between. No scripts, just the stories that truly mold success. Each episode takes you on a journey through those breakthrough moments that paved their way. No fluff, just genuine stories. So whether you're chasing dreams or just love a good story, buckle up for wisdom, laughs, and the unexpected. This is the Breakthrough Podcast, where success is a journey, not just some fancy destination. Don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button now and join our Breakthrough crew. I got some incredible stories to share, and you won't want to miss a single one. Hey everyone, today's episode is going to be one for the books. I'm sitting down with Rob Terpilowski, a guy who's been through the ringer in real estate. From wholesale deals blowing up to pre-foreclosures that no one saw coming. He's not afraid to share the ugly truth about this business. We dive into some wild stories about squatters trying to extort $150K. Yeah, you heard that right. We also get into the pros and cons of self-storage and how he's transitioning from the headache of tenant dramas to finding gold in storage units. Let's get into it. Rob, how's it going?
Doing good. How are you doing, Steven?
Doing good for this Tuesday. Yeah. It looked like we solved our little bit of technical difficulty. Wasn't that bad?
Yeah, I think if only all of my problems were that easy to figure out, life would be just amazing.
That's so true, right? That was like the easiest thing of the day. You could say That's an easy win, right?
Yeah, exactly. Before I got on here, I'm dealing with a situation where I'm trying to, I'm involved in a wholesale deal, and it was supposed to close today. And we finally got the seller's payoff, and it's like $30K higher than he was expecting it to be. And it's showing that he's going to need to bring cash to close now in order to get this deal done. And he obviously does not want to do that. So we've been spending all morning trying to figure out if this deal is still going to work or not.
Oh, wow. So how did that kind of come about? There was no seller net sheet midway through or in the beginning? Like what went wrong?
No. So the other thing is that the seller didn't tell us he was in pre-foreclosure. That was the other thing that was a huge surprise to us. So much like the microphone this morning wasn't working. It was a surprise. Like this was a major surprise this morning, getting his text message and says, "Oh, the seller owes like way more than he thought he owed, and he's in pre-foreclosure." How do we not know this? The day before we get the payoff statement from the lender. So I don't know. There was probably a number of things that we should have. I don't know why this didn't show up on the initial title report either. Right, this fact.
Right.
So yeah, and the other thing too is the seller moved out all the stuff last night out of the house. That's the other crazy thing. So he's expecting to get paid today. He thought he was going to walk away with like $20K. The settlement statement showing that he owes 13 on the sales. So, and I was like, I don't know. The buyer's going to have to come up in price, and nobody's going to have to make any money in order to get this deal to close, unless the seller's willing to come down a little bit from what he wants. So
do you think there's room for the investor to, what is this going to be down the road for this investor? Are they going to is it a fix and flip, or are they going to hold it? What are they doing?
It's a fix and flip. They're buying it for $290, and ARV on it's probably $425. They'll probably put like $50 or $60K into it. So it's not going to be like a home run deal for them after transaction costs and hard money costs and all that stuff. But it'll be a nice, easy, should be an easy flip for them. So, whether or not they're going to be able to come up an additional 10K in order just to give us something, and also for the seller to be able to walk away with something. We'll see. So he's threatening, like the seller's threatening, like if he doesn't get his price now, he's going to just list the property. And the bank told him like it's worth 425. And so they're not willing to do a short sale on it. And I was like, okay, well, if the bank says it's worth 425, you could see if they want to buy it from you for 425, but I don't think you're going to get that, even if you put it on the market, because of the condition it's in. So
where's this located?
This is located in Elma, Washington, which is probably about 2 hours outside of Seattle, kind of on the way to the Pacific coast. So tiny little town in Grace Harbor County. We've got a small pool of investors that buy deals out that way when they come up, but it's not like a huge market out there. So we don't sell a ton of stuff out there, but every once in a while we get something that there's enough room on there that the investors are interested in it. So
yeah, so maybe to give the audience some color on what you do, what is your background? What are you into as far as investing is concerned? Because I know you do. It seems like you do a few things. What's your bread and butter?
So right now my bread and butter is primarily wholesaling. I got into wholesaling though to find deals for myself, basically. Yeah. Most people get into wholesaling the other way around. They start with wholesaling as a means to build up capital and then buy flips and rentals and stuff like that. I got into real estate by buying properties at the auction. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, like pretty much 90% of all real estate investors, that's like how their story starts. And I hate that because it seems like so cliche, but that's how I got interested in real estate as well. But then I didn't do anything for 10 years because I felt like I didn't know enough. I was like, I don't have enough money. I got to save up 20% down payment. And then I'm going to buy a house like here in Seattle, and then I'm going to make $200 a month, net. And then I got to save up another 20% and buy, so this is going to take forever. Like, how is this even going to work? But then I discovered hard money. And I was like, oh, I can buy a property and for fairly low down payment amount that's in really bad shape. And I can get the renovation costs financed and then either sell it or refi it when I'm done. So once I discovered that, I kind of just dove in head first and just started putting bids in at the foreclosure auction. And first week I got 2 properties and flipped both of them. I made money on one, lost money on the other. I had like no idea what I was doing at all. No mentor, nobody like showing me what to do. All it was like YouTube, and I don't even know if Bigger Pockets was around back then.
What year is this?
Or not.
What?
2011.
Okay.
So
different time period too.
Different time period.
We didn't have no Instagram.
Yeah. Well, Instagram may have been around, but not nearly in the same way as it is today.
It was all photo.
Right.
It was all photo back then.
Right.
Yeah.
So then bought another one at the auction, made a little bit of money off of that, but then discovered wholesalers after that. And so bought some deals from wholesalers. And that's when my interest in wholesaling kind of got piqued, or at least finding off market deals, because I saw what these wholesalers made on these deals. On one, it was a duplex in Tacoma. The wholesaler got locked up at $75,000, which is just insane. And I bought it for $115,000, which was still a really good deal. And then another one was a pair of duplexes, which I bought the pair for $340,000. The wholesaler had it under contract at $300,000, and it was still a great deal to me. But I was like, if I found that deal at $300,000, that would just be an insane deal. So I was like, I need to learn how to find my own deals off market. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do I'm going to do mailers. I'm going to, I'll have sellers call me. So I'll set up kind of my target, which was small multifamily at the time. And so I sent out a bunch of mailers. I had my daughter at the time. She was like 7. I had her like writing the envelopes. So it'd be like handwritten, so they'd be more likely to be opened. And I got some calls. I went out to talk to some like very unmotivated sellers, and I was working a day job at this time still. And I was like, damn, like this is very, very time consuming. Like maybe these wholesalers are kind of earning their money after all. So I kind of just went back to buying from wholesalers, but I still had this in the back of my mind that I wanted to find my own deals, right? So at some point, I shifted to looking for deals in the Midwest because stuff here in the Seattle area just doesn't cash flow very well. And my goal was to acquire properties that, would help me pay my bills. And it's just hard to do here in Seattle. So I was looking in Oklahoma and Indiana, and that's kind of when I got back into like, okay, I'm going to start like looking for my own deals. So I started running Facebook ads. I hired a cold caller, and I was starting to get some deals in now at this point on my own. And this is when I actually got deals where I didn't want to keep them myself. So I wholesaled them. So the first wholesale deal I ended up doing, I probably spent like $4,000 or $5,000 like over the course of, I don't know how many months on Facebook ads and a marketing guy. And I got a deal that I ended up wholesaling and made like $1,500 on. So it wasn't a great ROI for me on that.
You're doing a wholesale short sale.
Yes. It's a whole short sale. So that's when I was like, okay, I need to get connected with somebody who is actually doing this to like that can guide me and tell me what I'm doing wrong, kind of give me a recipe. So I started looking into mentorship programs. And I discovered Jamil Damji and Astro Flipping. This was back in like end of 2018, beginning of 2019. So they had just started this program. So I was within the first 4 months of them starting it. What they were kind of talking about kind of resonated with me as far as their approach and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, rather than spending another $5,000 on marketing and stuff and really not knowing what I'm doing, I'd rather pay to join, somebody who's going to show me exactly what their recipe is, and I'll stick with that.
What was the difference, Rob? Like, did they have different kind of system in place, and what resonated with you?
So the thing that resonated with me that kind of stuck out from the other, what some of the other mentorship programs were teaching was they were not going direct to seller on their deals. They were all about looking for deals on the MLS, doing outreach with agents and building an army of agents that basically is going to be looking for deals for you, and then also networking with a lot of other wholesalers and investors. And so really it's more organic networking and sourcing deals from people within your network rather than trying to find the sellers themselves. Because they're like, if you are spending your time, if you dedicate your time talking to the people that are out there talking to the sellers, so you're not having to actually spend that money on marketing, and you do a deal with one of those agents or wholesalers and that deal goes well, chances are that person is going to want to do another deal with you. Whereas if you spend all this time and money finding a motivated seller and you do a deal with them, unless they're a landlord and have a portfolio, you're probably not going to do another deal with that person again, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that I was looking for properties for myself first, and then wholesaling anything that kind of didn't fit my buying criteria, I felt that kind of gave me a unique advantage too with talking with these agents and other wholesalers, right? Because a lot of them are getting bombarded by people that just want to wholesale, right? They just want to sell everything that they come across. Whereas me, I'm like, okay, I go into every deal looking at it as, okay, if I'm buying this deal for myself, where does it need to be as far as price and condition and rehab, estimate and all that stuff. And then if it doesn't work for my criteria, then I have a network of buyers that I could pitch this deal to. And so that agent or wholesaler investor could still get paid, even though I might not be the one that's going to be buying that deal.
How'd you put your team together when it came to that? Did you start, were you at this point looking for the deals in Oklahoma and Indiana and then said, okay, let me just try to figure out some of the top players in both avenues and then just start reaching out? And then did you stay in front of them, month after month and just until you finally got a couple deals and then that relationship was there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started out a lot of online networking, Facebook groups, the local real estate groups. But then I spent quite a bit of time actually in Oklahoma City and Indianapolis. So I was probably going down to Oklahoma City every 2 or 3 months before the pandemic, just building my network, meeting with contractors, agents, property managers, other wholesalers. And so I have some really good friends down there. And the thing is, like, people want to do deals with people they're friends with, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely true.
Yeah. So it's all about being likable and being easy to work with and low drama, doing what you say you're going to do. And so I've met some really great people down in Oklahoma City that I've done many deals with down there. So yeah, I ended up acquiring a bunch of properties down there, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth wholesaling. And then I ended up shifting back to Washington as far as wholesaling goes a few years ago because Oklahoma changed their wholesaling laws.
That's right. I heard that.
Yeah. So you have to be licensed in order to market off-market deals down there now. And I just felt like it wasn't, the wholesale fees weren't worth it in that market to justify me spending the time to get the license. So I felt like I could probably be working just as hard up here, but in Seattle, but making more money because the price points are higher. Thus, you can have higher assignment fees. It's hard to mark up a $60,000 property by very much, but a $600,000 property you can mark up, a bit more.
Definitely.
Than that. So,
are you still buying out in Oklahoma City and Indianapolis? Are you still in those markets?
So I kind of shifted my strategy a bit a few years ago from residential real estate to self-storage now at this point. And what I have found is real estate is not passive income. You Yes. I don't know who came up with this term, but you are basically running a business. If you own rentals, you own a business. This is not passive. There's nothing passive.
It's a day-to-day operation.
Yes, exactly. Even if you have property managers, you're still having to do stuff day to day, right?
Yeah. I think it's funny now I look back on some of the guests that I've had on my podcast. We all touch on a lot of the same topics because it's always those hot button points to the business, property management, contractors, underwriting,
Exactly.
It's just like these big three keys it's not a set it and forget it type business.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a portfolio of properties, then it's definitely not a set it and forget it,
Yeah, absolutely.
when it rains, it pours too.
Yes. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. And the thing too, is like some of these properties I had acquired, sub 2. So they had an underlying mortgage. And so there's a whole nother can of worms they don't really talk about with sub 2 that you have to be careful with as far as like insurance. And it's just like such a pain in the ass, some of these things that you have to deal with that, I don't know if necessarily people that are going into like the sub 2 group, for example, know what they're getting into. Yeah, it's an awesome way. I bought 3 properties in Oklahoma with like 10K out of pocket, and they cash flowed great. And like, so that part of sub two was amazing. Like the fact that I only had to spend 10K out of my own pocket and I was able to control, $500,000 worth of assets and cash flow, I don't know, $1,500 a month or so. And then not only that, there was the principal pay down and then the appreciation. So there were all these great things about sub two, right? But then there's the flip side where you got to deal with stuff that you're not having to deal with if you just flat out own the house and have a mortgage in your own name. So some of the things that I ran into with that, there were a lot of headaches. And so I was like, I had about 15 doors at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I would rather just own one big property and not all these little 1 to, 4 unit properties. So, I heard the thing that attracted me to self-storage was the fact that like, okay, you don't have the same landlord tenant laws that you do with residential real estate. And coming out of COVID, at one point in time, like 40% of my tenants had stopped paying, and then I was dealing with trying to get them out. And the ones I did get out, then like, there was $15,000 in damage on some of those units, right? So it was just kind of mind-boggling what people were able to get away with during that time. And and even now, actually, in Seattle, I just did a reel about this wholesale deal we're working on where a squatter.
Oh, I want to hear about this.
Oh, it is stupid. Like I cannot believe
Where do we?
This is legal.
I don't get this. It was funny. I was driving her to my media room, and I was thinking about that video that you posted, and I just don't. I don't understand. Well, I don't understand the word tenant rights. I don't even know how the tenant right, squatter rights why it's in the same sentence together.
Right. Yeah.
It's insane, and I just don't understand the dynamics behind why you can just produce a fake lease, and be able to just occupy somebody's property. And that's that, just because it looks legit, it's strange, but let's hear about your story. Cause I know it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I don't get like, in what realm of what reality is this like, okay, for somebody, but basically on this deal, this is another, it was a wholesale deal that another agent was involved in. And he reached out because he's like, hey, I got this house in Puyallup, which is a bit south of Seattle. It's really nice house, DR Horton, like not very old, and just literally needs carpet and paint, can go on the market. And so they were wholesaling it. They had a tenant in there. And so it was agreed that the house was going to be vacant at close. The tenants moved out. They got their security deposit back. And that was about 2 weeks before closing. Sometime between the tenants moving out and the deal closing, the tenant's mother moves into the property and she's not on the lease anywhere. I don't know how she got access to the property if the tenants just gave it to her. That part of the story is a bit shady, I feel like. But she's demanding from the seller in order for the seller to be able to close this deal right now, because the buyer's like, well, there's somebody in there, so I'm not closing on it, obviously. This squatter wants $150,000 payment in order for this seller to be able to close this deal, and she's not moving out unless she gets this $150K. And so there's a few other crazy stories going on in Seattle right now that I've heard, where this one guy's been in a property in Bellevue for 18 months, and this poor homeowner has been having to pay this mortgage the entire time, and property taxes and all that stuff. So I just don't understand. So anyway, this deal's at risk of blowing up. So I found, I looked at it for myself at first, and then I was like, because the price is pretty good, but I'm like, I don't think I want to get involved in this situation here. I do not know how long it's going to take to get this person out. So I found somebody else though who has probably an iron
better
stomach,
threshold,
better threshold for risk. Yeah. And so he's willing to do it. But man, like I just don't understand, how is this even legal? Like, why can you do this with a house? Why is this legally okay to extort somebody $150,000 for a house? But like, let's say you were to steal somebody's piece of equipment, right? You take their excavator and you hold it
You steal their
hostage.
car.
Or you steal their car and you say, I want X amount of money to give it back to you, right? And then you can have it back. Like, that person would get arrested, right? So why
Where do you
is
think it
this?
stems from, Rob? Because Washington's pretty crazy, right? With
Mm-hmm,
their it's not a landlord friendly state.
mm-hmm.
And it's so what came about that we ended up where we are now? Like, why do squatters have this many rights now?
I
And why is
honestly,
it different in every state?
yeah.
Well, why is that?
Well, the reason I think it's different in every state is because you just have I feel like it's like a liberal versus conservative argument, right? And and very in states that are probably more pro business are going to have laws that tend to favor landlords or property owners more than states that are, pro labor, for example. But what I don't understand is, so that you got the squatter rights and you got the tenant rights, right? I don't understand in any state why squatters have as much rights as they do, right? They have no legal claim on the property at all. Tenant rights, okay, that's a little more.
That's different.
That's different. I still don't agree with a lot of the stuff that's going on here in Washington, where it's eh, like it's getting a little out of control on that side too. Like max late fees of $10. If they're late on rents, like, okay, how's that gonna incentivize somebody to pay their rent on time? Some of the other things are some landlords report to the credit agencies, right? Their tenants' payment history. Well, they're trying to pass a law, or maybe it has passed at this point, where you can only report the on-time payments. You can't report the late payments to the credit agency. So there's in like 6 months, having six
But this
months.
happens with your credit card when you don't pay, but that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Why? How is this any different than a credit card? Why are they not protecting people that are paying late on their credit card? So I don't know. I think what you're asking is a very good question. If we were to go back and take a step back and ask ourselves, like, what is driving, or even who is driving this agenda for really giving the tenants so many more rights to a property that they do not own, right? And they had no risk. There's no risk for them in acquiring this property. All the risk is on the property owner, right? For maintaining it, for paying the taxes, um, and making sure it's in good livable condition. So why is it that those property owners aren't being rewarded for taking that risk, and providing housing to somebody that doesn't have enough money for a down payment to actually pay for this house themselves?
Yeah, it's pretty insane. So what happened? What happened with this lady moving in? Is this ongoing right now?
Yeah, so this is in process right now. We're currently working with the seller, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able just to close on this deal in a couple weeks, and then the buyer is going to be,
Taking on the squatter.
taking on the squatter. Yeah, but
So she takes it over. So did she produce a lease, or is she just an active squatter?
she's just an active squatter. I don't think she's produced a lease. So that's the other thing I don't understand, is why can't the police just go in there and get some sort of verification that, okay, this person doesn't have a legal claim.
And it hasn't been 30 days.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that some places it's not over 30 days. And then they just say, well, this is a civil
A civil
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they just leave it up to the courts. And I think some of these, it seems like the opportunity came from the tenants. It's almost like they were in cahoots with each other. You know what I mean? Like that. Well, because the tenants, right? It's the tenant's mom.
Oh yeah, yeah. On this case, I was like, the tenants have to be involved in this,
Of course.
somehow.
And they're going to split that money up too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going through it right now. I went through 3 squatters on my very first property I bought in the Midwest. And, it's been one after another. And then what happens is this current squatter who we were able to get her on a month-to-month lease. So now we're evicting her. And the problem is then they move out at a certain point, but now the house has been a target. So it's like, oh, she moves out. We don't know. And then 24 hours go by and then another person moves in. And I'm just like, I'm so done with it. And honestly, it's kind of made me think about it on all my properties everywhere, because it's just something that's been coming up a lot lately. There's more news on squatters and just especially the smart ones that know what they're doing. It's a big problem, and it can happen to anybody. And I think that's one thing. I think something that people don't really realize is you could take off from anywhere you're in the United States and go on a vacation for a few weeks and then show up somebody's living in your house.
That's exactly.
You could be the one that's, pro this and everybody needs rights, but then it happens to you and it's a big problem.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why couldn't this happen to somebody that's just on vacation for a few weeks? They come back and somebody's in their house. Yeah.
Yeah, it has. So that makes storage lockers a lot more.
Yes.
A lot more doable.
Yeah. So here's the thing I love about storage so far. They're 5 days late on their rent. I just lock them out of their unit. Like, you don't need to get a court order. You just throw a lock on there and they can't get their stuff out until they pay. Right. But also nobody's going to care if like grandma's dresser gets auctioned off, or whatever crap they got in their locker that just has been sitting in there for months and months and months. So, so that part has been really, really nice. And the other thing too is, I think self-storage is treated more by its users like a utility, right? So like $100 bill, coming in $100 invoice every month from self-storage isn't like, somebody is dedicating a huge amount of their income towards a rent payment, right? So I don't think it's ever going to be looked at in a similar way as tenant rights, for eviction purposes and stuff like that. So, and then everything is super automated with the self-storage facility, like the late notices, the overlock notices, like all the stuff goes out automatically if they're not submitting their payments. So most of the time we're not having to chase these people down unless they're really falling behind on their payments. So, so that's the other thing I really like about it is kind of the level of automation that a lot of this management software provides you. So basically I ended up selling a couple of my duplexes here in Tacoma, and I complained about the cash flow here in the Seattle area, but the amazing thing in this market is like the appreciation though is crazy, right? So I owned those things for 5 years. I was able to basically 1031 out of them and buy this facility and not have to bring any additional capital in. And it's cash flowing way, way, way more than the duplexes here ever were. So,
and where is this? Where is these storage units at?
Storage facilities in Maine.
In Maine. And what did you do to pick a market to invest in, and what was that research like before you ended up buying in Maine?
So with storage, it was less about the location and more about just the numbers on the deal. So if I came across a deal, I would analyze it as far as the local market that it was in. But I was kind of agnostic as to where in the country I would end up when I was looking for these. So basically what I had is I had my VA go out there and get on every wholesaler's mailing list for self-storage, join any Facebook groups, comment on every single deal. We set up a special email address. And so basically I was just getting all these deals sent to me and kind of going through each one of them and seeing, okay, this one, as far as the numbers go, look good. Let's do a deeper dive into the local market there. and kind of see what's going on as far as other facilities in the area, what they're renting for, what their occupancy is, and that sort of stuff. So it was just kind of by chance that I came across one in Maine. And the thing that I really liked about this deal was that I was able to get seller financing for the balance that I didn't have from the 1031 exchange. So that helped juice the cash flow a bit more on it than something that I would need a commercial loan, would have needed a commercial loan to buy.
What was the terms on that?
It's 6% interest only with a 5-year balloon. And so the cool thing was that the previous owner, or the guy I was buying it from, got it seller financed from the person he bought it from. And that note was assumable, which was cool.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the seller gave me a second position on top of that to make up for the difference from the 1031 exchange. So, yeah. So this thing's cash flowing like crazy. Just did a run around of rent increases. And it's just, the thing that is just mind boggling to me is like, okay, there's 100 units. I just raised the unit rents by $10 a month, right? I was really worried that people were going to start complaining and screaming at me, and nobody said anything. And my income just went up $1,000 a month on this, right? And it's still, the rents are still under market. So I'll do the same thing again next year on it.
And people tend not to want to move out of self-storage too. It's a hassle, so $10 here, $20 here. It's not going to break the bank, so to speak, but, and they just don't want to move the stuff. So it's kind of a good scenario. How did you go about underwriting the deal? And what's the difference between underwriting a storage facility compared to a duplex?
Yeah, so storage facility, it's all, the valuation is all about the income, right? So you're looking at it from a completely different perspective as when like I'm evaluating a small residential deal. There, the valuation is it's mostly based on comps in the area, and then you kind of have to still have to take a look at the actual income and cash flow numbers, obviously, when you're buying a deal like that. But a lender is primarily going to be looking at the comps, not the income, right? Whereas with commercial, it's all about what the numbers look like. And so as I was underwriting that deal, I'm basically looking at, okay, what are the numbers as they are today that the current owner is getting, as far as income, and then what are they spending their money on? I want to make sure that, and this is the thing too, when I'm looking at wholesaling some of these rental deals, I can now easily tell when a seller is BSing me. Like I look at their profit and loss statement, and they say that their expense ratio is 20%, on a duplex or on a fourplex. And I was like, there's no way. They're bragging about how low their expense ratio is. There's no way you can have an expense ratio of 20% on a residential property. It's just not possible. So obviously you're either fudging your numbers, or you're deferring a ton of maintenance, or you're doing something to keep that number lower than it needs to be, or lower than it should be. But basically taking a look through their numbers and trying to figure out, okay, it's somewhere in the realm of possibility of where numbers should be. With the self-storage facility, you're probably looking at between like a 30 and 40% expense ratio. And as long as you're in there, then you kind of break it down further and see where are they spending their money? Are they deferring any maintenance and stuff like that? And then,
are you looking for a value add type scenario in the equation as well? Like, okay, it's a tired landlord, and the facility is a little run down. They're not doing good with marketing. Mm-hmm. Like, are you adding that element in there too, of where you're going to basically increase value and income?
Yeah, absolutely. I hate buying things for full retail price. Like,
where do we go from here? He already
Oh
set
my
it up.
God.
I don't know if it's going to do good now.
I love deals where there's the opportunity to add value, and there's multiple ways you can add value. And the thing that I really liked about this, so I've done like deals where it was like a duplex that was like a 250K rehab all the way down to the studs, basically, rebuilding it and then condoizing the two units and selling them off separately. But the thing I really like about this, the value add aspect of the self storage deals, these units were just built within the last 10 years. So they are in great shape, but the owner really hasn't done much in the way of keeping the rents up with the market. And this is the awesome thing about income properties and value add, is that you can buy something that is in great shape, but it's a value add property because it's the income that it's generating is below where it should be, or where it could be at least. So you can push the value of that asset up by bringing its income up, and you don't even have to do anything in the way of capital expenses to the property. And so that's the thing I really, really liked about this particular deal, was like he hasn't raised the rents in a few years. And so he's about 25% below market. So I can bring the value of this property up by another 25% over time if I can push those rents up to the market rate. And I don't even need to do anything as far as adding anything additional to the facility, as far as capital expenses go. So, but
That's
yes,
good.
I am always looking for value add.
What do you why do you think that he didn't have it at that point? Do you think they just get comfortable with the type of clients they have there, and they feel they're going to lose people, so they just keep them steady to keep the units filled, so to speak?
Yeah, I think so. And I feel like they kind of put too much. I mean, every businesses are relationship based, right? But self storage is kind of a commodity, right? Like somebody's not necessarily going to store your stuff at your place because you're friends with them, right? They're gonna go wherever they feel the best value is. And I think these guys were very, very reluctant to raise rents because they're afraid that they're going to upset people and then people are going to start leaving. And so I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect too is they owned another business, right? And so I don't know if the self storage was more of a kind of like a side business for them and not their main focus. And so maybe if they aren't making, they're not really maximizing their profit on this particular facility, it's not like a huge loss to them because their primary income source is this other business that they're running. So that's, I think, the other angle was why they might not have been really kind of keeping the rents up to where they should be. And the other thing too, I think they were worried about is there was a new facility a few miles away that opened up and putting possibly price pressure on rates in the area. But I haven't seen that yet. So we raised the rents was one thing that we did recently. And the other thing that we did was we started mandating insurance, and we're offering insurance now through the management software has a partnership with an insurance carrier. So we're basically getting 50% of all the insurance premiums that get collected. So
that's a value add play.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Really cool.
Exactly.
And they weren't doing that.
And they weren't doing that either now.
Yeah. And so when you went into the underwriting process on this deal, so you're pulling comparables from how far out? Are you just finding all the facilities and looking at the condition and then are you going to their website and checking out pricing? Is that kind of how you're
absolutely
doing it? Okay.
Yeah. It was a little easier in this market because it's a bit more of a rural location. So this was the other thing I liked, is there were not a ton of facilities around this one. So there was maybe 2 or 3 other competitors within about 10 miles of there. But it involves going to their website, seeing what units they have available, how much they're charging for them, what sort of specials they're advertising. And then, then I go on Google, I kind of take a look at their reviews and see what people are saying about them, and
how to make yours better.
Yeah, exactly. See what the major complaints are there, see what they're doing good. And then taking a look at the pictures of the facility, like on, the Google business pages and Street View and stuff like that, to kind of see, like, okay, is it an unmanned facility? Is it something that has an office there and truck rentals and stuff like that? So, but yeah, so basically though, it's just basically going online and getting all the pricing information from those facilities in the area, and then kind of tabulating those and figuring out, okay, I don't want to be at the very top end of that because I don't want to price myself above where everybody else is. But if I can be up close to there, I'll use that as my assumption for what I can get the income up to.
Get the sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So are you thinking of getting more facilities down the road? Do you only have one?
Yeah, I just have this one right now.
When'd you close on it?
This was in December.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is new. You're new at the strategy.
Yep.
Do you think do you want to get another one? Like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually finishing up a renovation project just outside of Atlanta on a fourplex, and this thing's been going on for a while. But I've decided that, okay, I don't think I want to keep this one as a residential rental. I'm just gonna go ahead and I think sell this one off and look for my next self-storage deal. So I've got a number of people here in Seattle who are very interested in this strategy as well, especially from what they're seeing with just all these horror stories about the tenants and squatters, and they're very intrigued by the idea of the self-storage, but they want just more of a passive role. So I'm still on the hunt for the next deal, and my basic I either want to be able to just pay for something all cash, basically funded by these investors, or find something that could be seller financed, and the rates are low enough that make the cash flow viable. I think it's very tough right now to buy something with commercial financing, unless you're buying it at like a 10 cap or 11 cap or something like that, or putting 50% down on it, in order for the cash flow to be there. So I just don't think it's very, very hard right now, I think, to buy a cash flowing property commercial with commercial financing and have that income be decent enough for it to make sense. So that's kind of been the challenge now, is finding those seller finance deals where the terms make sense. But that's kind of what I'm on the lookout for as I've been sifting through these deals that have been coming in.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to be patient. You know, like that's a skill in itself. Yeah. Because I think when you get into investing, it's sort of an addiction, like it's a rush and you just want to keep momentum going. But then sometimes, when the market is not in your favor and, where rates are at, you kind of have to, step back and reevaluate and just be patient and wait for that next opportunity that really does pencil out. That is somewhat of a no-brainer, and those still come around. You just you got to wait it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too. I think with real estate, probably any real job, like it takes a lot of consistency, even when you're not finding stuff that works. Like wholesaling is the same way. It's like looking through so many just shitty deals. Like I don't know how many deals I've looked through, probably 500 deals I've run numbers on so far this year, right? And we've sold like a dozen deals. So looking through 500 deals to sell a dozen, how many people are willing to just every day look at deals? Okay, here's another one. No, numbers don't work. Like
lots of failures.
It takes a lot of consistency to find stuff where the numbers make sense, right? And I'm sure this with like having to find deals, like, because it sounds like you're looking for deals kind of all over the country too, if you own stuff in the Midwest. And
sort of, I'm starting to get to that point. I'm trying to condense my strategies down and, you know, I'm more focused in Seattle now, which just came about by having a few people on my podcast that,
Oh,
you know,
okay. Was one of them Justin?
yeah. So you know what? It all started with Justin actually, because I was
Oh,
at
interesting.
I was at the Bigger Pockets conference and I met him, and then came back home, and that was right around the same time that I started the podcast. And so, you know, I invited him on as a guest, and then I just started, you know, following other people. You know, we started following each other on Instagram, and then all of a sudden we're just all connected in one way or another. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had Ann Curry on the
Oh, yeah.
podcast, and
Yeah.
Ian Love, and it's off for the races. And we just got into contract on our first property in Seattle last Saturday.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of deal is it?
So we bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single family basement on a 12,000 square foot lot. So we're going to develop the main house into 2 units, going to do the dadu play.
Oh, awesome.
Possibly do 2 dadu plays,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, something I brought it to our architect, and she's like, I haven't even worked on a lot that's 12,500. She's like, I'm so excited. I don't know what to do here. She's like, I think I'm going to put one of the dadus in the front of the house and maybe one in the back and maybe a driveway to the left. I'm like, wait, the driveway's to the right of the house. She's like, you got room on, but you got 100, it's 100 feet wide.
Yeah, that's
I'm
huge.
like,
That's huge for Seattle.
yeah. Picked it up for $750 with a $10,000 seller credit.
Wow. You find that on the MLS?
Yeah.
Wow.
We locked it up in like less than 24 hours.
Wow. How'd you do your feasibility that quickly, though?
Well, we got most people out there in like 3 days. Went through all that. Talked to the architect. We've been barreling through it. Surveys lined up, and it was just such a big lot. It was flat. You know, not that many trees. There's trees, but they're more on the outskirts of the lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just a very straightforward lot.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, got the contractor out there, and they're just like, dude, you got a gold mine here. This is amazing.
What part of Seattle is it in?
Up past Ballard.
Oh, wow. So you are like in a really good area then. Like dadus up there will probably sell for like, I don't know, 800K maybe a piece. 1,000 square feet.
750, I'm thinking, but you know, but the play on this, the only downside to this property is it's closer to the freeway. Mm-hmm. But there's a barrier wall, and then there's trees that block it off, and so it's not that bad. But we're just going to hopefully take full advantage of these dadu plays where we can have, you know, turn the garage down the road after the permitting process, gain more of that square footage. We have so much room that we could have, you know, a 3,000 square foot lot per dadu. Mm-hmm. And the front house still has, you know, a decent backyard. Mm-hmm. So there's all these different plays. But my contractor said, hey, I would keep the main house. It's like, don't sell it. Like, let's just fix it up. Let's put the other unit, you know, make this a rental, cash flow. I'm like, but then I've heard so many horror stories about Washington's as, you know, just, it's not a landlord friendly state. I'm like, am I going to start going through the same stuff I don't want to go through? Like, is it worth it? You know what I mean? Like, I really have to take a hard look on where I want to put my effort in. You know, I'm nervous. It's like California. Like, I don't want to go through that. So,
I mean, I guess the question is, can you take that equity and put it into some other cash flowing asset where you don't have the same risk, and potentially you're getting a higher, you know, cash on cash return? Because I mean, I feel like it is tempting to leave it in there, because especially if it's going to cash flow, and the appreciation is going to be crazy here too, like over the next 10 years. That's absolutely like the other thing. So it's kind of
like the puzzle, man. I don't know. It's a puzzle, but you know, it's funny how it all came about to starting for investing out in Seattle, but it made sense. And a lot of it, how it made sense was having the right team.
Mm-hmm.
Just meeting the right people. Then I flew out there, got on the ground, checked out neighborhoods, met Ian, met contractor, met everybody. And that just gave me a little bit more peace of mind. Plus, because I live in California, it's closer,
Mm-hmm.
easier to get on a plane and fly out there. It's only 2 hours away. And I see where these developments of Dadus are a really good play. And I think what happened, what we've learned over building portfolios is we were doing burrs and keeping them and getting our cash out. We're doing them at scale, using hard money and all that good stuff. But we're getting to that point where we're running out of cash in one way or another. And it's like, now this is a good way to do a few projects per year where we actually make cash. And then, what I was thinking of doing is moving some of that cash to the Midwest back to like Indiana, where it's more landlord friendly, and put it somewhere where I can have a little bit better peace of mind and control with any type of tenants and squatter type things. And it's really based on that. That's why I would choose that area, is because they favor a landlord more. So
yeah.
That's the vision as of now, but you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
Once you get into it, you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah, and isn't that the beauty of real estate?
Yes.
You're always figuring it out. It's never the same.
Everybody is always figuring it out as they go.
Yeah. So how's it been in Seattle for you as far as wholesaling is concerned?
Last year was rough for sure. When the interest rates went up towards the end of the year, like business completely dried up. We were doing about 5 deals a month, and then interest rates spiked, and we didn't sell anything that August at all. And then it was kind of slow to come back. This year's been a bit better. Got a lot more investors buying stuff, and now the bottleneck has been the deals. Getting deals where the numbers actually make sense. So it's kind of amazing how quickly it flips from a seller's market to a buyer's market, and then back to a seller's market here. So I think
based on inventory, right?
Based on inventory, and fear was like another big component of that, right? Because investors just stopped buying because we were selling things for about 60% of after repair value typically. And then the interest rate spiked, prices started dropping, and that discount to ARV that investors wanted got larger, but the sellers' prices didn't come down to follow that, right? Because the investors are like, oh, this property might be worth 10% less when I go sell it in 4 to 6 months. So I got to bake that into my, rehab numbers that, okay, maybe the ARV right now is 500, but when I go sell this thing, it's going to be 450 because the price, who knows when the prices are going to stop dropping. So there was a pretty big adjustment there. The sellers finally started getting a little bit more realistic about their prices, even though their neighbor just sold their place for, 800. It was like 2,000 square feet bigger and fully remodeled, but that, doesn't, that doesn't
They
matter.
don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. So there, things kind of return back to normal. Sellers are a bit more realistic now about what their place is worth, but now we got a ton more buyers that weren't around about a year ago. So now my biggest challenge is trying to source deals. And so that's why I'm taking a look at like 500 deals so far this year, running numbers on 500 deals to find like a dozen that we've sold. So I'm in the process of trying to come up with some creative ways to source some more inventory for all these people that want to, buy a property to either flip or burr or put a dadu on or whatever.
Yeah. What do you like to do on your free time? What keeps you sane?
Yeah. I play ice hockey a couple times a week. So,
cool.
Yeah. And Justin actually does too. It was a while ago, but we got up early, went to the rink like at 6 a.m. or something like that. And they had open ice. So we just played played there for an hour before we started our day. But he plays in a league around here, and I play in a league around here, although we've never played each other.
Where do you live?
I live in Snoqualmie, which is about 25 miles outside of Seattle.
I heard that market's kind of crazy too.
Yeah.
Or getting there.
Yeah. It's getting there because it's close. It's not too long of a drive to get to Issaquah and Bellevue, which, there's a lot of companies based out of there. Costco's based out of Issaquah, and then got a lot of companies now headquartered in Bellevue. And then Redmond is not too far away where Microsoft is. So the prices in Snoqualmie have been going up quite a bit over the last couple of years. So
I've heard that.
Yeah. But they just put an ice rink out there like 2 years ago, which is amazing. It's like literally 3 minutes from my house. Like I can be done with the game and just be home in less than 5 minutes. And I never thought they would put an ice rink out there because it's like, it's kind of a ways out. Like there's one down in Renton, there's one up in North Seattle. And, but at the time that they bought the land, it was cheap out there. So they ended up building a couple of rinks, and there's an office park out there that they built. Cool. So yeah.
Good. That's good. Well, I'll be coming out to Seattle in a few weeks. We should get together.
Yeah, for sure. What's the dates that you're coming out? Because I'm heading out of town for a couple of weeks.
Good question. We close on the 21st of this month.
Okay.
And so I'm probably going to come out sometime after the 26th of this month, I think.
Okay. I'm going to be out the 22nd through July 5th.
5th?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll reach out if we're in that same, I think it's going to be around that time period, I would say. It probably will be after July 4th. Huh. Yeah. We'll see if we can make it work.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Awesome.
So where can people find you online?
So Facebook, it's interesting. I got a pretty big local following on Facebook, much more so than Instagram. So Facebook's a great place to start. So if you go to Facebook/RobBob, ROBBOB, and then Instagram is R Terpilowski. So that's RTERPILOWSKI. Very short, easy to say.
We'll add it to the show notes too. Well, it's funny. I was stalking some video a while back, and this is how you came on my radar. You had wholesaled something to somebody. I don't know if it was one of Thatch's students or it was somebody, and they kind of commented your name. And then I started folling you. I'm like, I'm going to get him on the podcast.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I've actually worked with a number of Thatch's students, like helping them. If they get something under contract, I'll help them find a buyer for it. Yeah, that's kind of been a great resource for me, is like networking with his students, because they can't always, that group is getting so big now, they can't always get one-on-one help necessarily when they actually get a deal locked up. So yeah, I've helped a number of his students.
That's cool.
Connect.
You guys got a lot of good things going on in Seattle.
Yeah,
a lot of good investors, a lot of cool people. I like the area a lot.
Yeah.
I could move there. I don't know if I can deal with the weather, but when it's nice and sunny, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, winters are a struggle, but the summertime weather you can't beat it here.
Yeah, no,
sure.
I got a little glimpse of that. I'm like, okay, this place is amazing. Yeah. So, yeah, well, I appreciate you jumping on today. Yeah. Glad that we got to have a conversation. Definitely we'll chat with you later. And hopefully if our time lines up, maybe we can get together when I get into town.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I'll be in, honestly, I'm going to be flying out all the time anyways.
Yeah.
So it's a long project.
Yeah, I'll be here. So, all right, Steve.
Great, Rob.
All right.
Thanks a lot for your time.
All right.
Thank you.